Once again, my name is Michal Stránský. I'm from the Thomas Bata University in Zlín, and I will talk about what do we in fact research when researching a lie. Lie is obviously something which intrigues me greatly, as all of you, that's why you are here. But being ethicist by trade, I was always wondering whether or not lying is moral. Because we know that lying and deception is something notoriously bad. It is something with that kind of stigma on it. But on the other hand, we know that there are some lies or kinds of deception which basically we are obliged to do. Some things like white lies. But maybe interesting question is whether or not lying sometimes is a necessity, something necessary. Because we have several kinds of lying. We have statements like that. I didn't steal that money. And quite, of course, when you are stealing some money and you lie to someone that you don't know who took that money and that it was you, it is something despicable, morally, we can say, or morally suspicious, to say the least. But then we have other kinds of statements. I am very glad to see you. It's something you can say to someone if you meet him on the street and you know it is the last person you wanted to see. Then you can say something like that. And we can say these statements, these sentences is part of our social arsenal, of our social management. And it would be quite curious if these kind of statements will be evaluated, morally speaking, in the same manner as the first statement. So I think we have some deceptions, some lies, which are morally neutral, which are trivial. We are doing that on the daily basis, we can say. So my question is, what is the status of this kind of statements? I am very glad to see you. Yes, it is a very nice poem. Of course, it is such a beautiful child, etc., etc. Being a philosopher, I felt obliged to start with definition, and it was quite hard to find some definition of trivial lie. Eldred Ree and Rachel Taylor offered or developed this definition. Lies are trivial when they are not associated with much mental effort or distress, and when being caught does not really matter. Maybe it is not such an elegant definition, but we are working with what we have, and it is quite difficult to find some precise definition of something what we can call low-stake lie. Analyzing this definition, we can see there are 4 conditions for trivial lie. Lies are trivial when they are cognitively undemanding, they are non-stressful, they are without negative consequences, and of course, when they are lies. All 4 of these conditions are problematic. As we could see in the previous definition, lies are trivial when they are not associated with much mental effort, and lies are serious when they are associated with at least some mental effort. So if we have some mental effort, at least, the lie is non-trivial, lie is a serious one. But we can see that everything we are doing is to some extent cognitively demanding. Everything we can do requires some processing. It requires some mental effort. So we need, if we want to stick with the definition, we need to draw a line what is mentally, cognitively demanding enough for the lie to be serious. So it is somehow problematic condition. Then, non-stressful condition. A lie is trivial when it is non-stressful. When I am talking with someone and he wants from me to appraise his poem, and I think that poem is really terrible one, I do not want to tell him it is a terrible poem. So I will tell him, okay, it is a nice poem, but I can be stressed out by this simple, trivial lie. Because I may be afraid that he will feel necessary to tell me other one. I really don't want that. Yes? So I may be stressed for a little, just a little bit, but still we don't want to say that that was serious lie. That lie was still trivial, or our intuitions could say so. Now we have third condition, that trivial lie is lie without negative consequences, and it is of course something philosophically quite demanding. Because how can we evaluate it some consequences? The slightest thing we do can have serious consequences in the future. So what with that? Can we evaluate some kind of lying or deception as trivial only when all consequences of my act of deceiving is known? I think not, because that is post hoc appreciation or evaluation of some verbal act, and therefore it is, once again, with this condition, somehow difficult definition to accept. So what does it mean for this definition to be practical, without negative consequences? Maybe if I'm feeling that consequences of myself lying or deceiving someone can be serious, then it is non-trivial lie. But we are back again with stress condition, I think. That is what, in that particular case of lying, in this situation, evaluate as consequences. If I am worried about some negative consequences, therefore I am stressed by that. And of course, fourth condition, that is a lie, and we could see how difficult it is to define lie. My definition of lie, as any reasonable definition, is derived from the four-conditional definition of lying explicated by James Mahone. I would not dare in front of him to try to develop this definition any further, but my take on that definition is that to lie means to tell false information, not just not to tell truthful information, but to false information. That, I think, the difference between lying and bullshitting lies, to someone with the intention to make him treat that information as truthful. So the intentional condition is involved as well, treat that information as, to make him treat that information as truthful. So even though I know that my partner in communication probably knows that I'm lying to him and I'm lying through my teeth, and basically what I'm doing is, okay, I know you are not believing me, but here I am, I really said that, and what you are going to do about that. Yes? So it is some intention. I want for him to treat me like someone who is convinced about that information, even though he knows that I'm really not. So this is definition of lying we can use, or any other definition of lying based on the four-conditional definition. But these definitions are stipulative. What am I meaning by that? Stipulative definition is, of course, temporary. It's something we are using for now because it serves some purpose. But I think important for stipulative definition is that these definitions are intuitive. We are meddling with the definition long enough to be satisfied with that. But we know that these definitions are open to discussion, are open to critique, but we are still using that because we need some kind of definition. And now, if we are going to endeavor some project of developing, for example, lying detector or something like that, maybe it is not such a good idea to stick with stipulative definition of lying, because we need to be precise. We don't want to this definition to be open to discussion, because it probably can have some consequences to apply this definition when creating, for example, the method of lie detection. So I was hoping that science can help, that science can offer some good definition what is and what is not, in fact, a lie. Now, I hoped to amaze you by several examples of lying presented by scientific, neuroscientific, for example, articles. It was exceedingly hard to find any. Like, it is so clear, so obvious what is lie and deception, that this article don't care or bother enough about presenting some good definition. They are working with deception and lying as with something quite obvious. So if some articles provide some definitions, like famous article, old article, but still quite influential, from Bella De Paulo, they are relying on stipulative definitions, 4 condition definitions of lying, intentionally trying to mislead someone. Or some article from computer science, the dishonest behavior of agent I to tell another agent J that some statement is the case when, in fact, agent I knows that the opposite of the statement is the case. Once again, we can identify there 4 conditional definition of lying. Or neuroscientific article, deception involves intentionally misleading another person, either by omission or commission. It is more complicated. We have this omission or commission condition as well, but still we can identify that stipulative definition of lying. And some articles, for example, Xavier Serron, to lie is to make a false statement to another person with the intention that the statement be believed to be true. And this scientific team acknowledges that they are using Mahon's definition of lying. Now, we have these studies which are trying to prove that something is the case when studying a lie. We can use a neuroscientific study. I am not a neuroscientist, so I don't really know what this picture is about, but it is some meta-analysis, some collected articles, data from 23 different studies. They put them together and they tell, okay, these are the areas of the brain which are typically related with us lying. So maybe here lies some clue. If we are lying, we are engaging some mental activity when these regions of our brain are activated. It would be nice, and therefore we can find some scientific conditions or neuroscientific conditions for definition. For example, once again, Elder3 developed this 3-factor model that when we are experiencing, that lying are associated with experiencing some emotions. For example, we are stressed, we are afraid to be discovered as a deceiver or a liar. It is connected with some kind of cognitive load, therefore it is more mentally demanding than telling the truth. And we are attempting to appear convincing. So once again, there is some attention to appear convincing. And we have maybe some base to build definition, correct definition, exact scientific definition of a a lie, or at least a deception. But looking closer to this topic, you can see that this exact definition of lying is not really an issue for most of these studies. Because what is a lie? Once again, okay, we have false memory about something, and we are saying to someone, for example, that I was in Minsk, or I was in Prague, but I remember that correctly. Last week I wasn't in Prague, I was in Brno, for example. So no one will say that you are lying in that instance because you are just mistaken. So we have a difference between false memory and altered memory. Altered memory means that I know that I am adjusting that memory just a little to deceive someone, to tell untruthful information. But okay, this is quite plain. We are mistaken. When we are mistaken and we are making some untruthful statement, we are not lying if there is no intention involved. Then, difference between bullshitting and intentional lying, it was discussed. For me, bullshitting means that, and it was defined earlier. To bullshit means that I don't really care about the truth value of my statement. I know whether or not it is true or false. I'm just saying it, and I couldn't care less about the truth of my statement. And intentional lying in this case means that I know that what I'm saying is untruthful information. Maybe more interesting is something called instructed and uninstructed lie, because great deal of these studies, when we are trying to research a lie, for example, with some neuroscanning or something like that, they are relying on that they are offering or they are trying to convince someone to tell a lie. So, for example, tell me your name. Okay, my name is Michal. Okay, now lie about that. My name is Peter. Is it a lie when I'm instructed to say something I know it is untruthful, but in the same time, well, according, for example, this definition I'm working with, yes, I am trying to make someone treat this information as truthful. Yes, so maybe for some kind of definitional effort, it is lie, but it is unintuitive to say that these lies are indeed lies we are looking for. But great many studies are working with that kind of deception, that kind of lying, as with a lie. Yes, and they have some data, they are proceeding with some data, and they are quite happy what they now know about lying. But I'm not sure that this is intuitive to say that these things are lies. That applies for trivial and non-trivial lies as well. Should we consider trivial lie a lie at all if all these conditions, like you can see, a cognitive load is excluded, experiences, emotions, well, perhaps some, but not much, attempt to appear convincing, well, when I'm saying to someone that, okay, this is a nice poem, I probably won't work very hard to appear very convincing. Yes. For example, based on three-factor model, trivial lies are not lies at all. According to stipulative definition, for example, four conditional kind of definitions, it is a lie. But from this point of view, these instances of deception is not deception at all. And we can go further. We have these white lies and or selfish lies. self-serving lies, and other harming lies. So we can differentiate according to what we are trying to do with these lies. To serve me, or to harm, or to serve me, and in the same time to harm someone else. Something called honest lie versus against the dishonest truth. It means, well, I now, and we heard that before, I'm now telling you that information. I know that you won't believe that, and that's why I'm telling you, because I want to deceive you. Using neuroscanning, using these psychological methods of lie detection, for example, all these instances of lying probably provides different results because they are connected with different regions of brain, different systems, different functions. Common lies, targeted lies. A team of Kim Sirota. Common lies are everyday lies. I'm so glad to see you. Yes, it was a nice lunch. Please tell me another poem. I think these are pretty good. Or targeted lies, for example, from Bella De Paulo studies, when she and her team were trying to discover how often people are lying in their everyday lives. Yes? So they instructed their participants to be extra sensitive about lying and to make notes about every instance of lying or deception they are in contact with. Once again, I think when you are extra sensitive to perceive something as a lie, then probably you change your definition a little, slightly, because you want to fill that paper with some examples. So what can we derive from that? Studying lies is notoriously difficult. We have at least 3 principal objections to that endeavor. When we are trying to comprehend what lie is, then experimental conditions we are applying probably do not approximate the real world. Of course, we are working in laboratory, we are changing the environment, the circumstances of lying. Therefore, we can't say that what we have discovered indeed is an instance of lie. Then, the sensitivity and specificity of, for example, fMRI lie detection are not established. We have some data, but we are not really sure what they are telling us. And then, and that is connected with the first objection, findings may not be generalizable. We discovered something, but in some particular context, in some particular case, environment, and we are not able to generalize that, to say, okay, yeah, that is the case, that is how lying and deception works. And I'm adding the third objection, that we don't really know what we are looking for, because all of these studies I have mentioned, they are studying, they are researching just particular instances of something we would like to call a lie, but we are not really sure if it is lie or not, because every definition we can use is stipulative one. So what? We can stick with stipulative definition and then accept that what this research, these studies are telling us is not a lie, but some verbal act may or maybe not connected with deception, applied only for some particular scenario or circumstances. Or then we can, well, and basically that's it. We cannot be sure that what we are looking for is really a lie. So to conclude, trivial lies are probably not lies at all, but we can say that these instances of verbal activity are lies if we are willing to admit that this definition is stipulative and we can just adjust it a little, and maybe using some other definition, it won't be a lie at all. So, thank you for your attention, and I'm prepared for your questions. I cannot manage to, okay?
Thank you. Hello. Hello. Thank you. So yeah, thank you. I kind of share your concern. Although I don't do experiments on lying, I am an experimental psychologist, and I have read some of the same papers you've read, and I have the same kind of worry that these are not capturing, you know, what they claim to be when they say they're studying lying. And what do you think of the idea that, following from some discussion that has been raised earlier in the other papers, that with the role of trust here, or norms of trust, so maybe we can say that the thing that's, one of the things at least that's missing in many of these experiments is that there is no real norm of trust that's being violated, because you're in an experiment. It's pretend, it's role play. There is it probably ties into the same idea of low stakes, trivial lie. So what do you think of that?
Of course. Thank you for the question. I think that is really the issue at stake here. Because only reasonable way how to, using these methods, how to study lie, is to make our participant in experiment lie in that way that he doesn't know that that is what we are trying to study. There are some efforts to do so, but still they are corrupted by all these other things, like we have this experimental condition and we need to work very hard to create, to develop, to design something remotely close to what we are trying to discover. So we need to motivate our participant to lie, but in the same time, we don't want for him to discover that that is what we are focusing on. There are some studies, but really this is tricky, and it itself, I think, is damaging these experiments. Because, well, we can, in some manner, I don't know if it is suitable for fMRI searching or something like that, but to study lying in the real life conditions, but probably it won't pass through ethical committee and moral research in that manner probably will be deemed as immoral as such. So really, I am not aware of any experiment, of any study which solved that problem.
Talk about, thank you for the talk, I really enjoyed it. I just want to ask a brief question. You talk about honest lies. I didn't understand that. So the first time I heard something like that, it sounded like an oxymoron. How can a lie be honest?
Yes.
Can you please say something more about this? I also, if you're interested, I think that there's a study, I can't remember now, a couple of studies on white lies, which I think are really good. And they track the exact feature that you were just saying. People actually don't know that they're being tested for lying, and they're being tested for signaling games. And they were testing for altruistic behavior, where you would lie to the other person by transmitting a false signal. So it's not a genuine lie, but you can develop lying strategies in the same way, so that the other person benefits from deception.
Yes.
I have them in my laptop. If you're interested, I can give them to you. And I would also like to know this Abe et al. People who talk about honest lies. You didn't mention them. I'd like to have that reference if it's possible.
Which?
So, honest lies, when you talk about honest lies, you cite Abe et al.
Yeah.
You
know, this term was used for one purpose, so it is probably terminology of their team. Basically, what they meant by that is that honest lie means that you are lying and that's it. Dishonest truth means that you are telling the truth, but with intention to mislead someone, as James was talking about.
Which is their name, actually. Their name is Dishonest Truth.
Yes, but their terminology, they applied, I believe, just only for sake of the study.
Okay,
you know?
Thanks. Thanks a lot. Yeah, thank you.
And I think it's enough of me, so, well, we need to catch up with the schedule, so we will discuss. So, thank you, and...